Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my channel. Tonight we're going to take a look at the equipment portion of Farm Sim 19. This is a very beginner's guide for those of you that are new to the game and have never experienced the joys of Farm Sim, and you're getting in here and going, what the heck is all this stuff? We will cover field work and that kind of thing in another episode or another tutorial, but tonight we're going to specifically take a look at the different kinds of equipment that are in the game, what the different things do, and how to use them. So let's get started. And of course, the star of the show of any farming game is going to be the tractors. And Farm Sim is loaded with a bunch of actual tractors that are real-world devices. So we have tractors from around the world, brands from around the world. Everything that's in the game, as far as the base game goes, is a real-life piece of equipment. I know when I first started playing the game, I'm like, is that for real? Now, being an American, some of the stuff we don't see a lot of. For example, most American tractors do not have front PTOs. Some of them do, but a lot of them don't. Most American tractors just have weights up front. You'll see this on like the John Deere 6M. The Star brand tractors are made in South America, and those do not have front hitches. So you'll see that if you have a tractor that doesn't have a front hitch, it's more likely an American or America's style. And I don't mean just the United States. I mean all of North America pretty much. They don't use the front end PTOs or even these front 3-point hitches. Some of them do, but a lot of them just have weights added up front. So, but that is our star of the show, of course, is the tractor. And we'll go into the equipment. There's all kinds of equipment in the game, though. We have equipment for caring for your fields. We have equipment that you use to care for the crops. You have equipment that you use to harvest those crops. Equipment for taking care of animals. And we even have lumber equipment in the game, all of which is real-world stuff. The base game includes over 250 pieces of equipment, so we have a lot to play with. Tonight we're going to try to keep it as basic as possible, but I'll show you the different categories of equipment. So continuing on with tractors, we are in the vehicle shop. I access this by pressing the start button. Oh, I'm sorry, the select button on my controller. And there are 3 sizes of tractors available. The first is going to be small, medium, and then large, obviously. The small tractors are designed for maybe pulling trailers around the farm. We could do front loader activities with these tractors. So if you need to like use it as a scooper or anything like that, we can do that. And even there are equipments available for or tractors available for, you know, very small farms where you are doing some crop, but you don't need a heavyweight tractor to do it. Like if you have a very small field. Campaign of France is a map that's like that, where you really have tiny fields. You don't really need a very big tractor to pull the smaller implements. So now it's funny we say small, but these tractors are all actually in real life fairly large tractors. When you stand next to them, they're 10 feet tall or taller. They'll make your car look small. So they're still large pieces of equipment, but compared to some of the stuff that's in the game, they're a lot smaller. We then move up to the medium tractors. These are going to be tractors that are more useful. They're kind of, as we start in the grouping here, we have a lot of tractors that are good as front loaders, but then they're also decently sized for medium size, small to medium size equipment. So as your farm grows, you're going to move into a larger tractor like this. And these run all the way up to the John Deere 6R, which is actually quite a large tractor with over 280 horsepower stock. We got a Fast Track 4220 from JCB. That's also 235 horsepower. Puma Series is over 200. And a lot of these tractors can be bought to be over 200. So like the Massey is available 210. We go the Valtra, T-Series is 210. Once again, seeing some of these European tractors. Valtra we don't really see in the United States too often. JCB we don't too often. Though they're both here, but the presence is not very big. Mostly we have Case, New Holland, and John Deere as the primary modern tractor manufacturers. Then we go into the large tractors, and these are going to be big tractors for big implements, big plows, cultivators, that kind of thing. So that covers our tractors. Here you can see with the tractor that they've given us in this default map. This is a cultivator. This is designed to level out the earth after a crop. It rips up any kind of leftover roots. See how these roots are left? It rips those up and prepares the field for planting another crop. And this is your weight. You put this on the front of the tractor because obviously this weighs. And so you're going to have this on the back and then this counterbalance on the front to keep the tractor from being tail heavy. Okay, so what we have here is a seeder. This is a device used to plant crops. There are two types of seeders and a planter, and I'll show you what they do. Some of the seeders and planters can fertilize as they seed. Some of them can't. Some of the seeders can also cultivate. So we are able to take a look at that in a little bit here. I'll show you the different types of seeders. But you can also notice here with this tractor, we also have a counterweight to make it balanced. This is a very small seeder. You don't need a tractor this big for this seeder, and you don't need a tractor that big for that cultivator, though they are appropriate, but they might be a little oversized. You could pull something larger with this. So let's go ahead and take a look at the ground working tools in the menu. Once again, I press select to get there, and I go to my trailer selection here. We have tractors. These are the motorized equipment, and this is all the other equipment in the game. It's organized a little oddly, I think. They're just kind of random in here. But we have what's called a plow. Now, if you plant corn, potatoes, sugar beets, or sugar cane, you will need to plow after you harvest one of those crops. What those plants do is they pull a lot of nutrients out of the soil, and so the plow goes in, pulls up nutrients from underneath, and brings them back up to the topsoil. In real life, farmers don't necessarily plow every time they plant a crop, but in the game, if you're doing, once again, corn, soybean, potatoes, or sugar cane, you will need to plow after each crop if you want to get a full yield out of the next crop. And that means that if you don't plow, you lose 10% of the crop. So let's say you have a 10-acre field, and you're going to have, let's say it produces 100 liters of corn, which is not realistic, but let's just say it's 100 liters. If you didn't plow that field before planting or after growing a crop and then just replanted corn again, the next time you'd only get 90 liters of corn instead of 100. So you'd lose 10%. So once again, corn, sugar beets, potatoes, and sugar cane. Oh yeah, and sunflower seeds. All of those need to be plowed after they've grown. So you harvest the crop and then you need to plow the field. Other than that, you don't need to use plows in this game. Next up, we have what are called power harrows, cultivators, and disc harrows. These are all kind of the same thing. These devices, once you've plowed, these devices break up the big clumps of dirt and the mounds that you've made from plowing, and they flatten the dirt out so you're ready to run a planter over them. Now, you'll notice that some of these have unique features, like these Stara seeders can actually seed a couple different crops. These can seed grass, oilseed radish, which is a fertilizer crop, and they can also put down canola. So that's pretty cool. These are the disc harrows. Once again, they all do the same thing in the game. In real life, you'd use them for different types of soil. You know, one farmer might pick a disc harrow, whereas a farmer maybe like in the Rocky Mountain area would pick a cultivator because it digs a little deeper and rips things up. We also have a new category in 2019 called Subsoilers. Now, they added these through DLCs in 2017, but it's now permanent in the game. So these devices are nice because they plow and cultivate in one pass. That's very useful. However, they're not very large, and they require a decent amount of horsepower. You can see here, if you look at each piece of equipment, and this is something that I need to show you too, you have a horsepower rating. So I'm looking at the Kombi Plow 4. You see here, this one requires 140 horsepower. This guy requires 130. This Bednar requires 500 horsepower. So that's going to take a very big tractor. Now, you'll notice this thing also fertilizes. See the little fertilizer symbol there. This is the largest culti plow in the game. It's 8 meters wide. Now, there's one thing that you need to know about subsoilers versus plows. In the game, you have the ability to use a plow to combine fields together, to create new fields in open spaces. You cannot do that with a subsoiler. So just be aware of that. The subsoilers, even though they plow, they don't do that. So now here's a little handy note, talking about soil care and all that kind of stuff. If you stand on a field, it'll tell you what it needs. So here, see down at the bottom right there, this field is owned by me. The last grown fruit type was canola. It is currently on a harvested stage. So we've run a harvester over it and we've collected the canola off the field, and it has no fertilization on the field whatsoever. Let's run over here and take a look at this one. Down on the bottom right, this field is 0% fertilized. Other than that, it's just ready to go. Let's grab this one next. This field over here is 100% fertilized, so it has got full yield. It doesn't need to be plowed, and it's ready to harvest. Now let's check that far field over there. And once again, we have a field that's fertilized, free, and there's no weeds on this field. It's ready to go. But that's all we're going to deal with fields tonight. We will talk. I'm going to do a tutorial about field care and growing crops and how to get the best yield in another video. But for right now, let's go ahead and take a look at the next piece of equipment that we have on a farm. This is definitely a necessary piece of equipment. We have our harvester. Here we have a New Holland. It's a very small TX32 harvester, but for the day it was a big harvester. Now it's, you know, a very small harvester. Harvesters come with two types of headers. The first is kind of like a grains header, and that is for oats and wheat and barley. And then you have a corn header that does corn, sunflower seeds. They also even have sunflower seed headers that you can buy for these harvesters, and I'll show you those in the shop. Right now we have the wheat header, and we have wheat growing on this field. So I'm gonna hop in here and just show you how this operates. Now, the one thing I want you to notice is that when you first get into a harvester in the game, usually the guys that make the maps don't connect the header. So you can see here I'm separated from my header. And I'm going to go over here, and it tells me I can pick it up by pressing A, so I'm going to do that. Now you'll notice up in the upper left-hand corner, I have a white tractor picture. And when I pick this header, look up there in the upper right-hand corner where the white tractor is. When I pick the header up, you're going to notice I now have a white header on the front of it. And if I, hold on one sec. If I press my Y key, it switches back and forth between the harvester. Now this is important because if I have the harvester folded up and I pick up the header, we're going to do that right here. When I try to turn the harvester on, it will say this: you first need to unfold the harvester, and I don't have it unfolded. Well, what do you mean unfolded? Well, I've got to select my harvester by pressing Y, and I hold down the left bumper and press A, and that will unfold it. You can see there, that opens up the tarpaulin on top of the harvester. Most harvesters have this, some don't. The Nova doesn't have it, by Roslamash, or Roslamash or whatever. But most harvesters in the game have this, so you have to unfold them. So you'll have to, when you pick the header up, you'll have to pick the harvester again using that Y key. And then I go ahead and press the left bumper and X, and that turns the harvester on. And we're now ready to collect our crops. You'll notice that in the back of the harvester, we're going to drop straw. And we have balers that can pick that up. We also have collecting wagons that can pick that up. Now, in my options, I can hold down the left bumper and press to the right on the direction pad. You can see there, that changes it over. It no longer leaves straw on the ground. It just sprays it all over. Watch what happens. See that? So if I don't want to collect the straw, I can do that. It doesn't really benefit you. In real life, they use that as a fertilizer type. But in the game, it doesn't count as fertilizer. It just doesn't leave any straw, so you don't have to clean it up. So there's how the harvester works. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the harvesters that are in the game and some of the headers. We do that by pressing our select key. And we go over here to the tractor section on our menu. And you can see here we have our harvesters. Many, many different harvesters to pick from. I was talking about the Nova, and this is the one that doesn't need to unfold. That's your Nova right there. The Bison also does not need to unfold. All the rest of the harvesters do. Honk, honk. That was my wife playing a game. And over here we have our headers, and we're going to go to the tipper section here. These are the corn headers that are in the game. For the small harvester we're using, I think this is going to be this will be the right size here, the Ziegler. It's a Ziegler corn harvester. And as you can see here, there's a wide range of sizes available for the different harvesters that are in the game. Capello's kind of the generic one, but that you can use with different brands. So if you have some mod harvesters and you want to get a different size header, you can put those on. We also have the standard wheat / barley, canola, soybean header. And you'll notice here it tells you what it picks up. We have wheat, barley, oats, canola, and soybean are done with these headers. And you can see there's the header that we have for our harvester, and they just get bigger and bigger. Some of the really nice ones, like this Draper Stream from Rostelmash, and these two from Case in New Holland, have foldable wheels. It's like a trailer built into it, so that if you need to drag it around the map, you can drag it. Otherwise, these have to be put on a header trailer, and I'll show you those. Those header trailers are right here. There's a bunch of different ones available. These are the two primary ones that you're going to use in-game. This is for the bigger ones. This is for the smaller ones. But if we go back to the headers, you will also notice here, intermingled are some Hyalanthus. This is a sunflower seed header. Now, you can also use a corn header to do sunflower seeds. In real life, these are easier on the stalks, and so your sunflower seeds will prosper. In the game, it doesn't really make a difference. I wish it did. Like, I wish you'd get more yield. The only thing that this does for you, the harvester runs a lot faster when you're using this header versus a corn header on sunflower seeds, but that's it. Here's the larger Hyalanthus header. That's the small one. Yep, there's just a small and a large. Those are the only two that we have in the game. They're unique. We also have a second class of harvester, and this is where it's going to get confusing. If you have cows and you want to make a lot of silage, or if you like to make silage and sell it at the biogas plant, we have what's called a forage harvester. These harvesters don't have any internal capacity. They're basically like a giant lawnmower. All they do is chop up whatever you're cropping, and they chop it up into little bits, and they'll put those little bits into a trailer or into a tractor running along next side, and you can take that down to the silage pits and make silage out of it for your cows. Or this New Holland has a special header, and I'll show you that can turn poplars into wood chips. But in general, these just cut crops down and turn them into chaff, and then you take that chaff to the biogas plant and you make silage. I already believe I have a tutorial for FS19 for that, but if I don't, I'll make one for that. So you should see one here shortly to explain that whole process. But that's a little bit deeper into the game. You don't have to worry about that right now. But I do want to show you the headers for those two. These are forage headers. So this one turns the trees or the poplars into wood chips. This collects straw. I apologize. This does not collect straw. This collects wheat, hay, and grass that have been left behind by a mower. Same with this. These are actual mowers that mow, and then you can put that grass into a chaff wagon and make it into silage. And then these are the heavy-duty corn headers for our different forage harvesters. And there's more available with mods, but these are designed to cut down corn and turn it into chaff. So you don't get any corn out of it, you get chaff. So it's different, but I'll make a video on it. Now, you'll recall that I talked about having a tractor, small tractor, and this is the smallest one in the game, until you get into mods, that you can use to pull a tipper around. Now, this tipper we're going to use to collect the crop off the field. So we pull up next to our harvester, and the harvester has an auger that goes into the chamber where the crop is kept. And all you got to do is extend that auger, and it'll automatically dump into the tipper. There's many different tipper sizes and capacities. This one happens to be the smallest one in the game. If we go into our equipment store, you can see here that there is a whole bunch of different shapes and sizes for tippers. They go all the way up to semi-trailers. Now, in real life, you wouldn't drive this onto a field. You'd use an auger wagon, unless you lived in like a very dry portion of the Midwest. Usually they keep truck trailers off the fields, but in Europe they do sometimes. This cramp loader has these agricultural tires, so you can actually drive this onto a farm field. But with the regular road wheels, I'd be a little bit leery if if it's anything but completely dried out, you get stuck with these. Plus, this is a really heavy tipper. But these are, you know, grain trucks, obviously. We'll use that. And to go along with those, we even have, you know, speaking of tractors, we have semi-trucks available. The American ones are generic. Obviously, this is like some kind of Kenworth or Peterbilt. Tatra and DAF are built on the same chassis. This is a Russian truck with a European cab. It's a real truck, the Phoenix 6x6. Agro truck, obviously set up with all-wheel steering, and it's got these big off-road tires. Same thing with our MAN TGS. This is a real truck used in Europe. Once again, it's got the agricultural tires designed to go out on the fields. It's even got some pretty fancy hitches in the back and it looks like a power takeoff too. So you could theoretically use this to power equipment on the field. I wouldn't use it as a tractor, but I guess you could with the PTO like that. Does this have a PTO? No. And then we have these two larger, you know, trucks for American usage. This one, I've never used this truck before. I have used this one before though. This is pretty cool. Obviously a Kenworth style. Generic, but Kenworth-ish. So we have even that for tippers. You can get real fancy just from like a tractor pulled tipper. You can drive that to the store, or you can get fancy with it and, you know, put all your grain into a silo, which is over here. This is the built-in silo on the farm. You can build these in the game. They are available through the store. They're expensive, but you can put, you know, anything that you harvest off your fields into this, and then you can get a semi-truck and use the semi-truck to deliver the large loads of grain to the store, so that you're not just driving back and forth on a little tractor. So there's different options to do that, but that kind of covers the base equipment in the game. Let's go ahead and look through here and see if I see anything else that I think is worth mentioning for now. I did want to show you the planters and the seeders. Another thing that we want to talk about, and once again, I will cover things like crop protection, lime, in a later video when we start talking about field care, mowing, that kind of stuff. We're not going to cover that in this video. I do have a video out there already for Farm Sim 19 called All About Grass, Straw, and Hay. And it covers everything from mowers to loading wagons to bale technology to tedders to windrowers. And I will put a link to that video in the description of this video so that you can watch that. I also have videos about how to feed your cows, how to do your sheep. And that covers a lot of the stuff that's in the animal section. I haven't done anything on forestry yet. We'll see about that. Forestry is kind of iffy in the game right now. The physics aren't great. And then there's all kinds of helpful things, you know, obviously parts for different pieces of equipment in the game that we can cover in a different video, but they're not necessarily important to this base video. Once again, though, we have seeders, and seeders plant certain types of crops. They do wheat, barley, oats, canola, soybean, oilseed radish, which is, once again, it counts as a type of fertilization. You can also plant grass if you want to turn a field into grass and use it for your cows. So I guess you could pretend like that's alfalfa or something like that. But so we have two types of seeders in the game. Actually, three. We have a seeder that seeds only. And then we have this seeder that seeds. And you can see here it's got this fancy setup here. Thank you for following, by the way. I'm not streaming, but sometimes those pop up. And this one with that fancy setup can also cultivate as it seeds. So it's a 2-in-1. It seeds and it cultivates at the same time. So if you have a field, let's say like, this field that we were looking at over here, where the field doesn't need to be plowed, it just needs to be cultivated. Instead of running this tractor over with it with a cultivator, we can just go right to the seeder and we can just plant. So that's really nice. Then we have a third type, and these two are of this third type here. These seeders not only seed and cultivate, but they also put down fertilizer. You can see there's a fertilizer symbol right there. So we can put down seed and fertilizer, and we cultivate. Same thing with this guy. And that goes all the way up to some of the really big ones. You can see here this Condor does. The Stara Australia 32 does. We have these large air cart seeders that also seed and fertilize, and they also cultivate. So there's no cultivation needed. As long as you just have a leftover crop on the field, you can just run this right over it. So now we go to planters. Planters are the same idea. However, planters do different types of crops. They do corn, sunflower. Those are two that the seeders won't do. Now these also can do soybeans. Then on top of that, these are sugar beets. I know they look like carrots, but that's a sugar beet. And they also can plant cotton. Now, I haven't covered cotton in this tutorial. I will say this. You need a very large farm to do cotton. The cotton does not give you much yield. You need giant fields to do it, so it's not really a beginner thing. I think by the time you get to cotton, you will already be, hopefully, a very veteran farmer at that point. But stay away from cotton when you're first starting the game because it requires, I mean, the harvester alone is $500,000. So it's a very expensive thing to get into. However, it does pay really well, and there's all kinds of cotton. So in fact, I'll do a video tutorial on cotton just by itself. But these cedars, you'll notice though, none of these cedars, even though almost all of them fertilize, none of them cultivate. Now this one doesn't even fertilize. Does it? Oh, if you add this in, this will give fertilizer to it. Yeah, see there's fertilizer. So this is a kit. You put this on the front, on the back, and this goes on the front. Same with this setup. This is the front, this is the back, and they will hold both seed and fertilizer. And then you have a couple unique ones. This one's unique, this Great Plains device, because it's a seeder and a planter. So if you want a one that does all, this guy will do all the different kinds of crops, and it's huge. So you got to have a big tractor to pull it, but you could pull it with a big tractor and plant, you know, giant fields very quickly. However, you'll note that it doesn't do fertilizer and it also doesn't cultivate. So you're going to have to run a cultivator first, and you're going to have to fertilize either right before or right after you plant. So those are the seeders or the planters, though, once again. So we have seeders and planters. I've gone through the cultivators and the plows and the disc harrows and subsoilers. So I think that gives you a basic idea of the equipment that's available in the game. There's much more to it. There's a lot of stuff to do with animals. We have all kinds of front loaders and telehandlers to handle packaging, to handle moving, cleaning up cow pens, picking up pallets to sell, those kind of things. I'd say the last thing we really need to look at, though, as a category is the field care equipment. We have 2 in-game sprayers that are propelled. These spray both weed killer, herbicide, and then also fertilizer. And then we also have the solid fertilizer spreaders that spread lime and fertilizer, or in this case, just fertilizer. And then we also have sprayers they're not as expensive because they're just dragged behind, or they attach to your tractor, and you use this to spray the crops for both herbicide and for fertilization. So, and then last but not least, we have this weird category that most people don't use in the game, but you have physical weeders that you can run up and down the field. If you start having weeds grow on your field, as long as you catch them in the first stage of weed growth, these will actually pop the weeds out of the ground and they just disappear. So these are handy tools, but I don't find I use these very often. It is a great idea. And once again, you don't have to spend any money on liquid. If you do the sprayer to spray fertilizer or to spray weed killer, that gets expensive because you have to buy the spray. But to be honest with you, to fill both of these things up, it's less than $500 in herbicide, and that covers a lot of field. So like the 4 fields we own, we should be able to get all 4 of them with just one filling of that. So anyway, I think that pretty much covers the base equipment. Hopefully gets you an idea of how to get into the game. Once again, if you get in the tractor, it'll tell you you're going to attach your equipment, and you're going to attach the front loader. And we're going to go ahead and lower that, and I'll just show you us doing a quick pass of cultivation. I lowered the weight on the front. There we go. And we're just going to rip that stuff out, and then it'll be ready to plant after we're done doing that. You can see I missed a little bit. This is not very wide. This tractor could handle a much wider cultivator. But that gives you the base idea of field care. Now, we can hire workers. And basically, I'm gonna pull around here and show you how to do that. If you press the B button when you're lined up with the field, you can actually hire someone. However, you just know that you have to pay them. So it does, cost money to do it. But we can come over here and jump out, and we can go ahead and let that thing do its work. And there he goes. He's going to go ahead and do that. And then we can even take another tractor. Once he's got about halfway done with the field, we can go to that other tractor and hire a worker and have him do the planting for us. So we don't even have to think about what we're doing, but we can hop in here. Now, these have to be filled. Another thing that I needed to cover is that your cedars do not come with any seed in them. Okay, now this guy might already have some in because they were nice to us and they gave us 1,000 liters of wheat. But we have to buy wheat from seed from the shop. Now, you can change what you're planting by holding down your right bumper and pressing the Y button. See that? That changes it to the different kinds of things that this can plant. But you do have to fill these up, and what you do is you go into your shop. Whoops. And you go into your box, and you'll see here we have big bags. You're going to pick that, and you'll see in the big bag section we have a seed big bag. You're going to buy one of those or two of those, and that has 1,000, and this holds 1,000, so you just need to buy one. You're going to drive this tractor down to the shop, park next to the seed bag, and you're going to press your left joystick, and that will take the contents from the seed bag and put them in the cedar, and then you can continue working. Eventually you can get fancy, and you can get a front loader, and you can use that front loader to load a bunch of seed pallets onto a trailer and then drag it back to the farm and fill up your tractor that way. There's also a lot of nifty mods out there for those of you that want to get into the modding community where you can actually buy seed directly on your farm so that you don't have to get pallets brought in anymore. So there's that. But that's a pretty important thing that I almost skipped over. You do need to buy your own seed. So we'll go through that in another video, though, and more in depth. But once again, I just want to take a brief look at the equipment, kind of show you what it does for the base equipment. Once again, there's a lot more to the game, and you don't have to, do it all at once. But the stuff that most of these farms give you from the start, they give you enough to get crops planted, and you can harvest and sell those crops. And that's what you need to get going. So like this farm, for example, we have everything that we need to get another crop planted and to start making money so that we can start saving to expand our farm and buy more fields, get bigger tractors, bigger seeders, get into animals, maybe get into lumber, and find all kinds of different ways to make money. But in order to make money, we have to earn money first. So anyway, I hope this video helped you guys. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, or any ideas for tutorials that you'd like to see. Any questions that you'd like to have answered. So I do check my comments. I try to answer them at least once or twice a week, and I try to answer everybody's comments. So if you leave a comment down there, give me a couple days possibly to get back to you if I'm busy, but I do try to get to everybody's questions. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Have a great night. Be sure to subscribe. Thumbs up always help, and we will see you next time on Farm Sim 19.